Well, I was holding January yesterday, and I looked at my wife, and I said, if she lives to 85, she'll see the next century. And we both just looked at each other like, wow, wow. And you just go, what's this world going to look like? Barring the Lord's return, what's this world going to look like? Given current trends. I don't have any earthly idea. I am not a futurist. I am not a prophet nor a son of a prophet. But it does make you think. It really, really makes you think. And so I'm looking at this stuff, and I'm looking at we've said it before, the people who are calling good evil and evil good and openly turning morals and ethics on its head, and don't even seem to recognize what the effect of that is going to be upon the nations in which they live. I mean, there's, anarchy right around the corner when all the systems of authority and control and appropriate things, Romans 13 level things, are just being thrown off. And you think about these things, especially when you're holding little teeny babies that are completely defenseless. And it really makes you fearful if you don't know that God has a purpose in all these things. And even then, let's be honest with ourselves. We may know that our eternal destiny is sure in the hands of God. We may have that great confidence. But it doesn't change the fact that you look at what happened in Israel when God brought judgment against Israel. The godly suffered along with the ungodly. And when God brought judgment on nations like Germany and Japan in World War II, a lot of Christians died. A lot of Christians died on both sides of that war. When God brought judgment on nations like Germany and Japan.
So I just want to, I would like to, make the point that people want to, right now there's a big push to say, hey, we need to focus everything on Muslim terrorists, and they're the worst thing in the world. And aren't they worse than Christians? Aren't they worse than Jews? Aren't they worse than Buddhists? I had a guy say to me, hey, would you rather have a country run by Buddhists have a nuclear weapon or a country run by Muslims have a nuclear weapon? I go, I don't know. I wouldn't want to have a country run by Christians have a nuclear weapon because they're the only ones who fucking dropped one. Yeah. We dropped 2 of them, by the way, and we didn't need to. But if you asked MacArthur and Eisenhower, they said we didn't even need to drop the first nuclear bomb on Japan, and we did it anyway. Japan was looking for a way to surrender. So, again, trying to make out that there's another religion that's even worse than there's nothing worse than the Crusades. There's nothing worse than dropping nuclear bombs. There's nothing worse than invading Iraq. George Bush said they said, did you ask your father for advice on your Iraq invasion? And he said, I asked my heavenly father. And then he called it a crusade. So here we are, a Christian guy invading another Muslim country, killing hundreds of thousands of people, ordering torture and war crimes to cover it up. But because here's the big difference. Terrorism is the violence of the weak, and we condemn it. War is the violence of the strong, and we glorify it, which is why when I go to the Rose Bowl, I have to watch a fucking B-1 bomber fly over, and everybody salute and cheer it. A fucking weapon of death. Everyone, yeah! Okay, it's because would you cheer a jihadist with a pipe bomb or a suicide bomber? Because that's their war. Terrorism is the war of the weak. And a conventional war is the war of the strong. And that's all. So don't quit pretending we're different. We're not. We kill way more people. We've killed way more people. So this bullshit that somehow we're going to be angrier or more scared of Muslims than Christians, Fundamentalism is an illness that affects every religion. Right now we've got Buddhists. Buddhists are cutting people's heads off, right? We've covered that story. So, anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yes, it's important that we look at the actions that are taking place on the ground and ask, like, who really stands for peace. Now, if we look at actions, let's look at more broad actions. Let's look at Muslim suffering also in Burma and in the Central African Republic. Let's look at the Palestinian problem, which actually, as I will demonstrate tomorrow, actually goes back to statements in the Bible saying that the land belongs to a certain group of people. And that's leading to what we know today as the Palestinian problem, which sparks more violence. Let's look back at the history of Christianity. Helen Ellerby has written a book which I don't totally identify with, but the book is entitled The Dark History of Christianity. I think it's interesting to read it and see that side of what is being claimed, though all of that I don't necessarily think to be true. I don't find it to be a scholarly work, but I think that some of the matters that she has raised are important for us to bear in mind. More scholarly is Riley Smith in his book, The History of the Crusades, where he describes as the first Holocaust. The first Holocaust was when the Crusaders went down and were decimating Jews and forcing the rest into baptism and conversion by force. Let's look at the history of violence spurned by Christian scriptures. Let's look at the witch hunts in Salem. Let's look at the history of inquisitions and the wars of religion in Europe. So we have to look at the whole big picture and then take religion aside and look at our modern secular context in which we religious people don't have to fight our battles because we have the secular people who fight the battles for us. So we are protected in great countries like the United States of America because there's a military that goes out and fights and they commit the atrocities somewhere else. So think about the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This was from a majority Christian nation. So let's put all of this sum together and then look at the actions together.
Were those wrong? I do not believe they were. I do not believe that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were wrong. Dresden, I question. The necessity of it. Given the point in the war, its military objectives, so on and so forth. I question Dresden. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, no.